Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Big Dudes in the Trenches podcast. I am Doug, joined by Bug. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you doing?
Decent. I'm
Just
decent.
decent. That's. I
Yeah.
mean, that's fair. That's fair. I'm gonna be completely honest. This first half of the show is gonna be basically yours because I watched all of one football game this past weekend.
That's fine. I watched a couple,
It was
as I do.
as you do. I should also mention it wasn't college football that I watched. It was my son's flag football game where he scored his first touchdown.
That definitely counts. So we're all good here.
That's the review. They won. He scored his first touchdown.
Let's go. That's what it's all about, baby. All right. But we are not a youth flag football podcast, unfortunately. Actually,
Some
that'd be
real
really
degeneracy
creepy if
going
we
on.
were.
Betting
Maybe
odds
it's
on
fortunate.
youth flag football. We could
I
start
don't
a whole
even
ring.
want. Oh, geez. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to talk about college football, specifically Division One. But if we end up making it out to a D2 or D3 game, fuck it, we'll pick one of those two. Don't have any this week though, unfortunately.
Unfortunately,
Yeah,
because it is a
but of
big
course
week of college
does,
football.
it very much is. That does bring up the rules. As we all know at this point, we pick whatever games I tell us we're picking because I'm the one who makes the slides. And so that's how it works.
You know what's funny about that is like John was saying, he's like, we haven't picked any Ohio State games yet. And I was like, I know. He's like, well, we
Yep.
should have picked this one. I was like, then why didn't you say something? Like,
We should have picked against Iowa. Are you kidding me?
that's
No.
the one exactly that he mentioned.
No. I knew we were going to win by a lot. I was so confident in that game, I didn't even want to make picks. We are picking Ohio State this week for the first time of the season. I am an Ohio State fan, if you did not know. But we don't talk about just Ohio State. We talk about all of Division One, which means a lot of FCS games too, because they're awesome. And if you don't watch the FCS, shame on you. It's fantastic football. It's a great time.
It is.
We
It
do
really
keep
is.
score, and we keep track of every single pick that we're doing straight up. No, not against the spread, nothing like that, nothing crazy. Just straight up picking the winners.
The spreads move too much.
They do, and it's impossible to peg down on a Tuesday when we're trying to talk about games for the upcoming Saturday. Whatever. We're not messing with it. We're talking about straight up winners and losers. Hey,
Your camera died.
that's fun. Love that.
That's exciting.
Yeah, we'll get.
I'll let you work through some technical difficulties here, and I'll break it down what we're doing so far. We got Doug in the lead at 112 and 60, and so 65% average. Tug at 111 and 61, a 64.5% average, and then I'm bringing up the rear. 108 and 64, a 62.8% average. So, I mean, we're all doing pretty well. We're all hanging around that 2/3 mark. Nobody's quite made it there yet. Doug's obviously the closest, but curious to see how this week worked out for all of us.
Yeah, we started off pretty good, though. Texas State at Troy, Sam Houston at UTEP, both on Thursday. Yeah, I was more curious about the bounce back for Texas State and if Sam Houston could keep the train going, because what a shocker that game was between Texas State and Sam Houston the last week. So cool to see both of these teams responding in a big way. Of course, at the expense of Troy and at UTEP.
Well, I mean, both those teams are pretty fucking bad. So, like,
yeah. Not too surprising. What is surprising, I don't even know if it is surprising, actually, Syracuse over UNLV. We all picked UNLV, so maybe you can call it surprising if you want to. We knew it was going to be a slugfest. And overtime thriller, Syracuse does pull it out. That's awesome. What a game.
Yeah, I mean, it's less surprising than we would want you to believe because we all picked UNLV. I think we're all riding pretty high on them, though, based on the fact that they lost their starting quarterback for not paying him the money they said they would.
Yeah.
and they played better without him somehow. So I don't know. I thought Syracuse had a chance at it, but we got oranged and I got skunked. It was
Brutal.
a very, very bad Friday for me.
You got skunked because Harvard finally showed up to play. Uh, it was against New Hampshire, but New Hampshire's looked decent at points this season. So this was an interesting matchup for sure. But yeah, Crimson finally looking like what we should have expected out of Harvard past couple of weeks. We'll be
Yeah.
keeping an eye on them. The top dogs in the Ivy are not playing like the top dogs in the Ivy. That's for sure.
That is very true. And unfortunately, that's not the last time I'm going to see the Skunks. So let's just keep rolling right along, shall we?
SMU knocks off Louisville at Louisville. I was talking with the Cardinals, but of course, their defense sucks. So SMU pulls this one out.
They are probably one of the hottest teams in college football right now. Because they're playing at a level that I don't think anybody expected, with them basically buying their way into the Big 12, right? They weren't invited, or sorry, the ACC. They weren't invited. Yeah. They just said, hey, we got all this money and we won't take a cent from you guys for 10 years. And it's just like, okay, yeah, why wouldn't we? And it's not that they were bad in the American, but they weren't dominating like this and they weren't winning like this week in and week out. And they're doing it against much better competition. It's insane.
We'll see once they get to, I was going to say the tougher part of the schedule, but who actually is the tougher part of the schedule for them? Clemson's probably the only really great team in the ACC, and they got blown out by Georgia. So who knows? Maybe this is SMU's league. Tell you who doesn't run their league is Missouri.
Whew. I saw a little bit of two games. I said I didn't see any college football. That was a lie. I saw a little bit of this game. I saw a little bit of another game we're going to talk about in a little bit. I did not expect Texas A&M to win like this. I expected them to win. Obviously, we all did. And we saw some deficiencies in Missouri.
Right.
Who the hell thought this was how it was going to turn out, though?
Yeah, the Missouri offense has been struggling. That was kind of the main reason I was picking Texas A&M in the first place. The offense just hasn't looked the same. But man, when did Texas A&M decide to have an offense? That was not a thing past few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty surprising. Missouri needs somebody to step up if they're going to actually have a shot at the playoffs like people were expecting them to at the start of the season. And their schedule is pretty favorable. But if you're losing to Texas A&M, maybe it doesn't mean the same thing anymore. So fascinating to watch the Tigers going forward for sure. Texas A&M too. I don't know what to think of them. It is theoretically possible. We have Texas A&M as the SEC championship.
Getting that game twice in 1 year would be wild too.
After it hasn't been played in so long too.
I know. I got to make up for lost time.
Right. And Boston College heads down to Virginia, and Virginia pulls this out in the fourth quarter like nobody's business. Seems to be the MO in the middle tier of the ACC right now. Just totally different game when it comes down to the wire. And hey, good on Virginia, winning by 10 points here after they were down the vast majority of the game.
And it's been a very hot Boston College team. That's why I went with them. I'm pretty sure that's why Tug went with them as well. So very interesting to see. You know, there's been some talks about how this or that, especially NIL transfer portal, how it might not be good for college football. We didn't pick the biggest upset of the week, so I figure we might as well slide it in here. It seems like a good time as good a time as any. The transfer portal really has changed the parity in college football, and we've seen just this extremely crazy week, right? Like Texas A&M at Missouri. I said this was probably the most surprising, and it's not that I thought Texas A&M didn't have a chance to win. Obviously, we all three picked Texas A&M to win. It's the way that they won. You look at Vanderbilt and Alabama, obviously the biggest upset of the weekend. I don't think that's really debatable, and maybe that got lost in how I was typing it in the Discord. Join the Discord, by the way.
Join the Discord.
But you don't have Vanderbilt winning that game if Diego Pavia can't transfer from New Mexico State to Vanderbilt as a graduate student. It doesn't happen. So I think a lot of I think it's just a perfect culmination of things, perfect timing. College football's finally started to level out, figure out how the transfer portal and all this stuff works, and now we have a 12-team playoff. It would be a shame if Alabama missed the playoffs because they lost to Vanderbilt at some ridiculous point in the season. And people would be
Right.
screaming about the end of the year, be like, they had one slip up. And I get it, it's Vanderbilt. So, like, it's a bad slip up to have. But at the same time, Alabama doesn't deserve to be completely out of it. And really, Vanderbilt deserves to have a legitimate chance at it now, too.
Everybody was clowning Ohio State when they lost at Purdue. So, come on. Don't be giving Alabama too much credit here.
I'm not giving them too much credit. Don't get me wrong. I'm not giving them too much credit. And I do want to say, too, a clip that's going kind of viral. One of the defensive players just starting to throw off all of his, I think it was number 13 for Alabama, throwing off his sweatbands and kicking the ball after this, when it was set up after the
There were
first
a
kneel down.
couple of tantrums going on at the end there.
There have been other little things going on, like the celebrating after interceptions and everything that Nick Saban wouldn't have ever stood for. I'm very curious what Nick Saban would have done to that kid because, like, I'm pretty sure he's a senior starter, captain on the team.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world's going on with Alabama? The culture change is real.
Well, too, something that has followed Kalen DeBoer the past couple of coaching stops. Alabama this year is not good with penalties. Washington was one of the most penalized teams under Kalen DeBoer. This is just his coaching style. I don't know if it translates that well to a program like Alabama, unfortunately, where, I mean, that's such a culture shift. And we're seeing it on the field right now against Vanderbilt, unfortunately for them.
It is a culture shift, and you got a bunch of guys in there that hate losing more than they like winning. So
Right.
it's going to be a big deal every time they lose. They could have lost to Georgia, and it would have been probably the same thing.
More ACC action to go, though. Pitt at North Carolina, and Pittsburgh does pull this one out to start 5-0 on the season for the first time in a very long time. I saw a great tweet. It was like the last time Pitt was undefeated through the first 6 weeks of the season, my parents weren't married yet. And now they went undefeated again, and my parents aren't married anymore.
Brutal.
But what a game for Pitt. What a bad season it has been for North Carolina. And what a shocking upset it looks like now that North Carolina knocked off Minnesota so early in the season. Because they played that game now, I'm picking Minnesota again. And then Navy just had their way with Air Force.
Yeah, I mean, I did not pick Air Force thinking they would win. I picked Air Force because I'm in the Air Force and I'm not a Blue Falcon like Tug. So on principle, I could not pick Navy. I knew Navy was going to win this game. I could handle taking the loss here.
Bryant at Brown, 7-point game for supremacy in Rhode Island. Brown finally loses. Thank goodness.
Yeah, it seemed like of all the things that happened in college football this week, this was one of the few that actually made sense. So
yeah,
I'm glad I picked it, and I'm glad I was right.
It doesn't sound like it would make sense because both Tug and I picked Brown, but we were riding the meme. Of course, we all thought Brown should win this game. Yes, this one went the way it should have. The craziest part, this was only a 7-point game, honestly.
Yeah.
When has Brown figured out how to score 35 points in a single game? And speaking of 42-35, Delaware beats Monmouth by the same score. Hey, close game. I knew I was taking the underdog here. Monmouth put up a hell of a fight.
I didn't know Monmouth had game like that, if I'm being completely honest. That's kind of crazy to me.
You know who does not have any fight is Moorhead. Butler beat the shit out of them. And the reason we were watching this one, not necessarily that Moorhead had a legitimate shot in my mind. We just watched a Drake game. Now we get to see a Butler game heading up to this coming weekend. We're going to be picking Butler at Drake, which does feel like somewhat the de facto Pioneer Championship, although Davidson and Dayton may have something to say about that later in the season. This will be a great matchup. Butler at Drake this coming weekend. Butler looks legit.
Yes, they do. And we had a sickos game here of two really bad teams, and we all thought
Yeah.
one was worse than the other, and we got Wagnered. We got Wagnered hard.
That's brutal. Getting Wagnered. I don't like getting Wagnered. Yeah. I hate Stonehill's logo so much. I wish they would figure out how to crop their PNGs. That little flick of white at the end there, at the top of the S, bothers the shit out of me. Stonehill deserved to lose because of that.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Hey, Rhode Island won. Double overtime against Hampton. What a game, and I feel very justified because I don't think too many people were confident that this was going to be a good game. Hampton felt like they were falling off. The CAA felt pretty in hand. But William and Mary lost this weekend, which is a game we didn't pick. And Rhode Island squeaked it out against Hampton by double overtime. They got the 2-point conversion. Hampton did not convert the 2-point conversion. I mean, some massive games in the CAA. A lot to go in that conference yet. The one thing we thought for sure, like William and Mary looks legit. They're probably going to be right behind Villanova. Towson knocked them off. Maybe Rhode Island's right behind Villanova, but Hampton took them to double overtime. Who knows yet? We got a lot of season to go.
Absolutely. And then the next game, Wofford lost to Western Carolina 21-17. Tug and I both went with Wofford. I at least thought that Western Carolina, this had too much stuff going on with the hurricane coming in. There was no crowd at the game, and they pulled it out. 4-point victory here. Huge win, and hopefully they can start getting things back to normal at WCU.
I think there are two ways to handle a situation like the hurricane that hit North Carolina, right? You can either take it hard, have it affect you, you're not able to sleep correctly, you get all messed up, you lose the football game, or you use it to fuel you. Maybe that's what happened here. I do think Western Carolina is just the better team, but also leaning on support of their brothers, everything. Get out there, win the football game. Nice win for the Catamounts because Wofford has turned things around pretty quickly and are a competent club this year.
Absolutely. And I also got to say, I'm so glad I refused to believe in Tennessee Tech because
it's good on you.
Yeah, I needed everyone I could get this week. Secrets out.
South Carolina State should have won, and they did. I am back on the hate for Tennessee Tech wagon. Screw them.
Welcome back.
Thank you. One of the most shocking results of the weekend that we actually did get to pick, Weber State headed up to Montana, knocked off the Grizzlies in overtime at Montana. I feel only picked this game because it was ranked versus ranked. Yeah. But wow.
I feel very bad for who Montana plays this week. Let me just say that. And we got bobcatted, even though I know Montana State's or Weber State, sorry, is the Wildcats. It's a bobcat. Look at the logo. It's a bobcat.
It's yeah. It ain't a lion. I know that for sure.
It's not a cougar either.
Hey, Florida A&M beat Alabama State at Alabama State. Florida A&M is the team everybody expected to win. Did feel like Alabama State had some momentum. But yeah, the Rattlers pulled this one out, and they still look like they're the inside track in the SWAC. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah. This next game is the other one I got to see a couple plays of, and that's Ole Miss versus South Carolina. Now, one, I always take the Cox, but two, I'm gonna let that one simmer for a little bit. But two, I really thought Ole Miss was a bunch of frauds, and I still think that I just think South Carolina can't get out of their own way after what happened in that LSU game. I think that game derailed their season. A couple bad bullshit calls, and I just don't think they have the players and the coaching staff there to kind of reel everybody back in. And this is what we're going to have to see from the Gamecocks for the rest of the year, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is not the same team that beat Kentucky, or is it? Who knows? Maybe that's not the same Kentucky. I don't know the answer to this yet. I don't feel like we're going to get a legitimate Ole Miss this season, though. It feels like a very up and down, emotional roller coaster kind of a team. They get hot, they can get going a long ways. If you stop them twice in a row, they're going to fall apart. That's what it feels like watching this Rebels team.
Yeah. And of course, that means I got another skunking here because I picked Montana, Alabama State, and the Cox.
You got
it's been a fun time
by Weber State.
Oh yeah. And unfortunately, I think I see the skunk one more time. So let's go find out where that's at. It's not on this slide though. This one was really good for me.
There you go. Marshall beats the snot out of Appalachian State. I think we're about done picking App State games this year. That's where I'm at with this one.
Thank God. Because even though I don't believe in App State, there's still always that possibility that it gets me a little worried every time I pick against them.
And then I knew I was taking the underdog with Miami. They did put up a fight at Toledo, but yeah, this was at Toledo, and Toledo's definitely the better team. Proved it on the field.
And Villanova's definitely the better team against Stony Brook as well.
Yeah.
Interesting game to pick, but here we are.
Well, Stony Brook kept it close enough, kept it respectable. Villanova pulled away at the end there, which is kind of the way it should have been. Villanova, we've all kind of recognized, is probably, I mean, they got to be the most talented team in the CAA, right? Mm-hmm. They got to be the preseason favorite by a lot. They're playing like it to an extent, but they've had a couple of battles. I thought Stony Brook was interesting. The 4-1 coming into this game, now 4-2. Yeah, Stony Brook just can't hang with the big dogs yet.
Absolutely.
We moving
right along. Yeah, we got the old Chattanooga Choo Choo. I don't know if you saw that before or not, but you had to know that was coming.
I mean, it's Chattanooga. What else are we going to use? It's the old Choo Choo.
Chattanooga
because we all picked the Buccaneers at home against the Mocs. Yeah, 17-10. Chattanooga's defense remains the only good part of that team. Unfortunately for everybody else in that conference, there are two teams like that in the conference. Chattanooga and Mercer both have a defense and nothing else. And so if you have a mediocre offense or even slightly above average offense, you're just not winning in this conference. Probably up there is two of the best defenses in the FCS in Mercer and Chattanooga right now, which is insane because neither of them have any offense to speak of.
And moving right along, we had North Dakota State versus North Dakota. They, of course, were hosting this at the Fargo Dome, and they absolutely dominated.
I still contend if this were at North Dakota, I would have picked the Hawks. Probably stupid, but yeah, North Dakota State's not going to lose at home. Big rivalry like this.
And another team who I said wouldn't lose another big game at home, Nebraska. Yeah. Now, this is only a 14-7 win over Rutgers, and admittedly, I almost took Rutgers as well. I'm glad my line of thinking didn't let me down. I also want to point out that maybe I'm an idiot. Totally possible. I had not realized Dylan Raiola was a freshman until last night. Which, like, Nebraska's been so fucking weird with the Scott Frost experiment and the different dudes they've had chucking the ball up there. I thought maybe he's been on the bench for a year or two. No, this is a freshman, and he's got this team at a completely different height right now. I'm going to keep riding Nebraska the same way I have been, where it's like the moment's going to get too big and they're going to fuck it up, or they're going to run into a really hot team.
Wow,
but I don't think that's going to be the case for much longer. I think Nebraska might legitimately be a team to worry about here in the next year or two.
Yeah, 14-7 doesn't look too pretty on the scoreboard, but you got to consider a couple of things. Number one, Rutgers is a lot better than people are giving them credit for right
Yes.
now. And number two, this is a game that Nebraska would have fought like hell to lose the past 3-4 years.
Oh,
And
yes.
figured out a way to give Rutgers this game, but they didn't. That's like the biggest turning point for them. Just that alone, fixing that by itself, means Nebraska's up there as an 8, 9, 10 win team potentially out of the Big Ten. That can lead to some big things.
Absolutely.
Wild slide for you again.
Yeah, it's not
Pretty
great.
tough.
It's not great. The Skunks here again already.
I am starting to really strongly dislike Oklahoma State.
Yes. The biggest thing is you don't know what team is coming out. You don't.
Right.
And
still insane to me. They bring back Ollie Gordon. They bring back basically the entire offensive line. They cannot run the ball. What changed?
I don't know. And I don't know that I fully agree with the take that they need to get rid of Gundy. But man, does this not raise the question even more of, do we really want to keep him around? This is unacceptable. This team should not be losing games like this. And to their credit, West Virginia took care of business and did what they had to do on the road. It also just builds that question: how do you even evaluate West Virginia at this point, or anybody that Oklahoma State plays?
West Virginia is still undefeated in the Big 12. We'll see how far the Mountaineers can go. Only losses are to Pitt and Penn State. So they don't have to play in the state of Pennsylvania anymore this season. Big news for the Mountaineers. Another top 10 team going down here. Central Arkansas loses at Abilene Christian. Yeah, tough matchup. I,
A lot of purple.
went into this thinking I was picking the underdog, but it's at ACU and not UCA. Gave me a shot. Hey, Wildcats pulled it out.
Unfortunately, mostly for me.
Yeah, unfortunately for you.
What's more wild than that is that Tug picked Western Illinois to win a game, and they won, which means that we in total avoid the skunking on this one, but it fucked me over at the end. I don't understand Western Illinois, and I refuse to believe that they're a good team either. This is just depressing all around.
Really bad look for Charleston Southern, it must be said. Also, this is a winning streak for Western Illinois now after that multi-year losing streak. Let's go, Leathernecks. Very nice.
Oh, it's just
we'll be tracking them, see how long that continues. Spoiler alert, it probably will not.
It probably ends pretty quick. Hey, here's a good slide though.
Very, very nice to see. Idaho does beat Northern Arizona. Northern Arizona plays like a very tough team, tough out in the Big Sky, but definitely not in the same class as the upper crust, which feels a little bit smaller than we thought maybe. But Northern Arizona's in that second or third tier for sure.
I truly wonder if Northern Arizona is ever going to be able to crack into it. They keep having showings like this. Potentially in a year or two, they will.
North Dakota State is not on the slide. South Dakota State annihilates Northern Iowa. I was combining the two, not saying the wrong school. Yeah, I really picked this game for us because it's at Northern Iowa. And if anybody in the Missouri Valley is going to knock off the Jackrabbits, you'd expect it to be in that kind of a dome environment that just gets wild sometimes. South Dakota State's too good.
And I don't see anybody else that has kind of the talent in the Missouri Valley Football Conference this year to knock off the Jackrabbits. It's going to come down to it's going to come down to the Dakota Marker game, and we're looking at probably South Dakota State and North Dakota State winning the national championship again.
That regular season matchup will be nationally televised in a couple of weeks. It's already been announced either on ESPN2 or ESPNU.
They need to
Depending on the
send game day
outcomes of
up
a
there.
couple of games.
They need to send
That
game
would
day there.
be that would be great. That would be fantastic. I don't think it will happen. It
One
should.
can dream. A man can dream.
And then we all picked Jackson State against Alabama A&M. Alabama A&M, though, definitely made this a close one. 7-point game, but Jackson State at home knocked them off.
We knew it would be just a little bit for Jackson State to reload after losing Prime, but I think they're right back to where they were before he was there.
Definitely feels like them and Florida A&M are neck and neck once again.
Everything is right with the world.
Speaking of right with the world, the CW produced another double overtime thriller. Oregon State knocks off Colorado State by 8 points. Great defensive stand there in the second overtime for Oregon State. But the fact Colorado State even got there is kind of wild. Got to say, Colorado State did not look that impressive. So to take Oregon State to double overtime, good on you, Rams. Good try. Good effort.
Can I go back to being a South Alabama hater, please?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Because they lost to the champions of life. I'm of course talking about Arkansas State.
Yeah.
That's just disgusting. They should be ashamed of themselves.
Really should be. Honestly, even more embarrassing is losing to Louisiana Monroe on national TV.
And us getting Warhawked.
Wild. General Booty came out to play, and ULM wins by 2.
How do you score 70 points? 7-0 on North Carolina, and you can't break 20 against ULM? Oh my God. I'm out on the Dukes. I don't want to see that logo again.
Well, we won't for a couple slides anyway. Promise you that much.
I'm also fully out on SIU. I'm pretty sure I've said this on the podcast where I've gone back and forth and like, oh, maybe they need to look at getting rid of Nick Hill. And then I was like, well, maybe it's just they need to have a rebuilding year. And I'm settling on they need to have a rebuilding year because to come out and have this performance against Illinois State where they lose 45-10 in Carbondale, something's not right with this team right now. And I could kind of see it from the offensive side, but now it looks like the defense is starting to fall apart. I don't know how many of these guys are just selling and mailing it in at this point, but it's going to be a long year for Salukis fans, unfortunately.
Another blowout I definitely did not expect. Nichols 51 at Southern, who only put up 1 touchdown.
Yeah, but Nichols does this every now and then. I did not expect this blowout either. I don't think any of us would have said Nichols was going to win this in a blowout if you would have asked us last week. But Nichols does this sometimes, so they'll probably do it again.
Is Nichols the new App State? That's a real question. They just do that sometimes.
They might do it again next week and get everybody talking. They'll sneak into the top 25 and then straight back down to the bottom. It's just how they do.
Then get shut out by nobody. Oh man, this next one is sensational.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you the floor after I say this. It is wild to me that we all picked the unranked underdog against the reigning national champions, and we were right. And we did it without hesitation.
Double-digit win, too. So,
the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If I am a fan of the Michigan Wolverines, I am scared shitless about the rest of the schedule. I don't trust that there is another for sure winnable game on your calendar. Because what have you proven to this point other than you have 3 quarterbacks, none of which you can put any faith in? You bring in your 3rd quarterback of the season in this game. He immediately starts off a couple of drives looking decent, throws 2 interceptions to clinch this one for the Huskies. What in the world is this offense? You're starting to see things that you haven't seen them do, like just some straight up undisciplined gameplay out of, I don't know, your entire defense, which is supposed to be the strength of this team. You have no passing game out of even the seventh year guys who've been in the program for almost a decade at this point. And your running backs have decided to no longer perform. I mean, we've talked about Donovan Edwards having issues dating back to last season. He's really only had two good games in his career, by the way, and everybody fell in love with him.
I feel like he's been in college football for 70 years too. Like I feel like I've been hearing that name since I was in college.
It's just wild to me that they are still in the top 25 at all, because I don't see a single thing that they do great other than when they have both those good defensive tackles in the game, they can get some pressure from the defensive line. Outside of that, hell, even your great cornerback Will Johnson showed some real flaws in this game. And this is not a stellar Washington team by any means. This is a Washington team helmed by Will Rogers, who threw his first interception of the season, but didn't matter. They still won by 10 points. Unreal.
They get a bye week. Do they get right this week? I don't know. What I do know is they gotta go on the road again. They played their first 4 games at home, or first 5 games at home, go on the road, drop this one. I don't know that they're going to be able to handle Illinois. Illinois beat them Illinois beat them. They lost the game, but Illinois beat them.
Right.
And I don't think this Michigan team has it in them to beat Illinois this year. It's going to be very interesting, and it's going to be likely. I will say likely. It'll likely be a ranked matchup. I don't know what it is about this team. They just seem to not have the get up and go that you would expect from a reigning national championship team. And it's not even like the coaching staff is completely different, right? Sherrod Moore coached this team for 3 games? He's been in the room. What has changed so much that they just, and their offensive line, didn't they return a bunch of their offensive line, or at least the coach? Like, this is, I think that's probably the most insane thing.
Sherrod Moore was essentially your offensive line coach and offensive coordinator. Some hyperbole in that they should beat Northwestern, but at Illinois is brutal. Michigan State's a rivalry game.
Oh my God! Yes.
Anything can happen. Home against Oregon, at Indiana, who looks way better than Michigan right now. Northwestern, sure, in the big house, you better win that game. But coming to the shoe, this is not a great looking schedule.
Yeah, and I know that I don't want you to answer this. I don't want to pull anything out of you on that front. But if I'm an Ohio State fan right now, which I know you are, obviously, I'm licking my chops for this game at the shoe, because this Michigan team is not going to respond well, and they're not going to be able to do anything against the Buckeyes in Ohio State, at least from where I'm sitting right now.
One game at a time.
I know.
We got our own schedule to worry about.
Yes, you do.
Oh man, I was the only one to pick Minnesota. Thank you.
Go Vols, born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee. I live 11 minutes from Neyland. Before we talk about Minnesota, congrats on picking that, by the way. Let me just say, while I am not a Tennessee fan, I'm also not a massive Arkansas fan, but I do cheer for Arkansas because I am a Memphis alum. Awesome that you grew up so close to Neyland. Holy shit, what the fuck happened?
That's much nicer than I thought you were going to be. That's very big personal growth for you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for tuning in, Jesse.
Back to the games that we picked here. USC just did not have it.
We're talking about Tennessee at some point on the show later, aren't we?
Yeah, eventually.
I think so. We'll get there.
I don't think we actually picked the Arkansas game because I didn't expect it to be a close game, and then Arkansas won. But we will be talking about Tennessee.
We are. Yeah, we are. Yep.
Yes.
We'll get there.
But yeah, that second half, the way Minnesota responded to what USC was putting out there. And I got to say, the heart of this Gophers team is unreal. How the hell did they lose to North Carolina? That's all I really want to know at this point.
I don't know. I really don't know. And the crazy thing is USC, like we had question marks about them, then they go in and have a great game against Michigan. They've had some other great games as well. And then they drop a game like this. So again, going back to kind of that parity
They
conversation we
won
had.
in Death Valley.
Yeah, exactly.
You know who did not survive an SEC arena is UCF, because we all picked the Gators for some reason, and they rewarded us very nice.
And what's funny is I'm going to tip my pick here. I'm picking UCF later because of who they're playing this week. But Florida, and now I've got questions about what Florida really is.
I know.
Which is wild because,
here's counterpoint to your whole train of thought there, because I kind of know where you're going. We knew this Gators team was talented. We just also knew that they were missing a couple of really key pieces. What I didn't expect to see at all from Florida this year is for the defense to put together a game like this where they controlled this game. UCF has been able to score at will at times this season, but man, they really got shut down here. If the defense can show up like this, this gives Florida a real chance against some teams. I don't know if that gets them close to bowl eligibility. I'm still in the camp of them not making a bowl game this year just because how insane that schedule is. But man, we kind of knew there are ingredients here. I don't know if they have a whole pizza, but they have some cheese.
And I think everybody counted off Florida early and then forgot that, hey, maybe they do actually have a good team solely because they looked at their schedule and said, this is the toughest schedule in the history of college football. And that's pretty accurate, let's be honest. But they just completely discounted who they are, and probably they discounted Billy Napier to a degree. I'll just say it.
Very true. Hey, he was awesome at Louisiana.
Just like Sam Pittman got discounted a little bit too, but
it is kind of telling that LSU didn't want to hire Billy Napier in state.
Yeah.
But he was great at Louisiana, so we'll see. See what he can do.
There's always a chance. Yeah, he didn't have a chance in this
Duke.
one. Yeah.
Undefeated Duke is undefeated no more. Yeah, we kind of expected this one. Why did you actually pick Duke?
They were undefeated. And Georgia Tech, they've been fine. They just hadn't looked like the same team that beat FSU. And I was like, well, maybe that continues. I was wrong.
What a game. Kansas at Arizona State. It looked like Kansas was going to win this game 2-3 times in the fourth quarter. Arizona State just kept coming back on them. Wild fourth quarter here. The Sun Devils do pull this one out. And hey, they are actually looking really strong. I know they're squeaking out some games, but they're winning.
Mm-hmm. They don't ask how, they ask how many. And at the end of the day, the bigger question mark is, where did people think Kansas was going to be good this year? They returned a lot of players. They should be good. It just hasn't lined up. There hasn't been enough change, I feel like. And Kansas is a team without a home. That's pretty tough on a group of college kids. Now, it's awesome for me because I might get to see them play at Arrowhead against Colorado. And I have a feeling tickets are going to be cheap because nobody's going to those games. So I win in the end, I guess.
Yeah. Only reason anybody had any confidence in this team is because Jalen Daniels was coming back, right?
Yeah. Yep.
He just hasn't played well. 7 touchdowns, 8 interceptions on the year. That's not good enough. That's not the way he used to play before he started getting hurt all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest about it. So Arizona State speeding up the rebuild a little bit here, and Kansas is having to figure something out. going to be a rebuild over there in Lawrence, I guess. Kind of brutal.
Right to go right along with that new stadium. Next up, we had Hawaii losing to San Diego State and Tarleton State going to overtime to beat Southern Utah by a single point. I don't know why we picked Hawaii.
Yeah, I actually don't either.
I think it was a why not.
It was cool. It was a good game.
It was fun.
Really close.
It would have been neat.
Did you guys? Anybody see the end of Tarleton State Southern Utah? Other than me, probably not. That's fine. Unreal. Overtime. Southern Utah gets the tying touchdown. The kicker comes out for a very simple extra point. Just shanks it. It's not blocked. The hold was great. The snap was perfect. The line didn't get any penetration at all, actually. He had extra time if he wanted it. He just shanked it and lost the game to Tarleton State on his own. Brutal.
Poor kid, man.
Brutal result for the Thunderbirds. And Tarleton State survives another one. How do they keep doing this? It feels like the team of destiny this year, even though they haven't won every game. But oh my gosh, they have lucked their way into some conversations. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Oh man.
Our final slide from last week before we go on to what has been highlighted as the greatest week of college football in recent history. And we could have gone perfect, except y'all decided to pick Arizona for some reason. So let's start there.
It was at Arizona, and I don't trust Texas Tech.
There's no reason to trust Texas Tech. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Apparently, there's no reason to trust Arizona either.
I think that's
yeah.
I think that's the bigger thing here is Texas Tech has surprised me at different times this year, and Arizona has done nothing but surprise me at the opposite direction. So why would I want to go with them in this, what really felt like a toss-up game?
Idaho State pulls off the road win for another Big Sky W. Let's go Bengals. Loving it. Idaho State.
It's a fantastic Bengals logo too.
It really is. That's killer. And then the game of the week. What a comeback by Miami. It has to be said. I really didn't think they could do it. Gotta be honest with you guys. I fell asleep. It was I think it was 14-0 Cal. And I woke up and saw that Miami won. Went back and watched the game. I still don't really understand how Miami pulled that out. That's just unreal. I do not believe in the we got down so bad and then came back, therefore it's a Heisman moment talk. So I'm not going to say that. I just straight up don't believe that you can play very poorly in the first half and then come back in the second half and be like, oh, he's so amazing.
I'm with you on that.
But at the same time, it is true. Miami does not win this game without Cam Ward and without what he's able to do with this offense. So overall, the product for Miami right now is good. I don't think it's good enough to win them a championship. Actually, I'm not sure it's good enough to win them the conference. But this is the best Miami team we've seen in a very long time. That's settled at this point.
Is it the U? We're bringing the U back?
For sure. Why not?
I think it should be no surprise I was in last place. I got skunked 3 times, but honestly, still above 500 feels pretty good.
Very much above 500. Very solid week, honestly, for all of us to be this far out. I am ashamed of some of my picks, must be said. And I am so embarrassed. Second embarrassment for that Southern Utah kicker.
Poor kid, man.
Oh, that's so brutal. And then
Tug's so
Tug's not here.
happy he decided to go fly to New Mexico for today. So hope he's enjoying the smell of cow shit when he lands.
I thought he was flying somewhere else. That's crazy. Why is he doing that? Is that voluntary?
Yeah, I'll tell you after.
Okay. Wow. All right. Hey, good week for him. He pulled ahead of me by 3 games there overall.
Yes, he did. And he's inching ever so close to 2/3 correct. And I've 619, so all everybody in SoCal stand up. Your boy is here for you.
Let's go. 647 is somewhere nearby, isn't it?
I have no idea. Area codes are an interesting thing that I would love to do an entire podcast on because they make no sense and they're just kind of smattered and thrown around everywhere.
Nope. I don't know where I got that from. 647 is apparently Toronto.
What's crazy to me though is how I was like firmly in second place and like a couple games behind Tug, and now I'm 9 games out of first.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's wild. Fates can change very quickly on this show because we pick so many freaking games.
that
And
is
we have
true.
actually more this week. So let's get going.
Why are we doing this to ourselves?
One more time, we have to talk about JMU.
Yeah.
Thursday night game. A couple of Thursday night games this week. Actually, a game tonight that's going on right now. Florida International is behind Liberty, but
In the fourth
catching up.
quarter.
24-17, Liberty right now. There will be a game, actually 2 games Wednesday night, and then a couple of games Thursday night. We're only picking one of those Thursday night games because most of them are pretty mid. But Coastal Carolina at JMU feels like some massive implications for the Sun Belt this season. We're all rocking with JMU at home. It feels like the right move, but who knows what James Madison team's going to show up, I guess.
That's very true. And Coastal has been very much the same way as well. Who knows what team's going to show up for them? JMU seems to have the ingredients to actually dominate this game, whereas we haven't seen that from Coastal Carolina this year. It makes sense to go with JMU, even if I'm sick of seeing this logo. And this last week, I don't know why I still rode with them, but I think that's kind of indicative of how much I just don't know what to think about Coastal Carolina or trust them at this point.
I think we can change it up a little bit, get you a different logo at least for JMU.
Oh yeah, I know which one you're talking about. I'm down for it.
Starting to look at Friday here. When I made this slide, Memphis AUSF was going to be a Friday night game. That got moved just today, like 11, 10 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
It will be postponed. Right now, it's scheduled for Saturday at 3:30. That might change again still. So I didn't want to mess up the slides too much moving this around. But let's talk about it here, I guess.
Yeah. So obviously it's because of Hurricane Milton. In my opinion, Mike Oresco needs to nut up and tell USF you're playing this game in Memphis. Like that's just what needs to happen. We've seen this happen before. Unfortunately, it was Tulane and Oklahoma did the classy thing. They threw the green wave on the 25-yard line. I would like to think Memphis would do something similar for a conference opponent, especially under these circumstances.
Yeah.
That being said, all of that out of the way, when this game happens, I've had this one circled because I love Byron Brown. This USF team has not looked as good since losing to Alabama as we thought they would be.
Right.
And I have my concerns about this. Now, the positives here, Memphis finally got their bye week. They got some time to get some extra prep in, maybe get these guys a little bit of rest because something hasn't looked quite right for the Tigers offense. Defense has been fine, but the offense, like, it's just, I've had more questions than answers watching them. Hopefully this game gets to be played this week. Hopefully we get to see an improved Memphis offense. They go out and handle business in Tampa, or if it gets moved, they handle it wherever they end up playing. But between now and then, whenever this game gets played, prayers and hope, good vibes going to Tampa. Hope everybody stays safe.
The games that we know for sure will be happening on Friday, Northwestern at Maryland up first. Feels like the battle for the basement in the Big Ten, unfortunately, this season. I think this is going to be a very close game. Right now, the spread is 10.5, and we are all picking the favorite, Maryland. It feels wild to me. The spread's that far. I think Northwestern is going to put up a hell of a fight, even though we are all picking the Terps.
Absolutely. Northwestern's another team where it's been a year of what ifs and what could be. I just think Maryland's going to have this one at home.
And then that team we just talked about, the Sun Devils, are potentially going to take a lead in the Big 12 here. At least get themselves in that conversation. I think Texas Tech, BYU, there's a couple undefeated teams in conference right now. But Arizona State, Utah, massive, massive game right now, the way the standings are shaping out. Utah needs this to stay alive in some deep conversations. People were talking about them as a playoff team. They have not played like it past couple of weeks. And at Arizona State, this could be massive. I'm rocking with the Utes, but this scares me.
I feel comfortable saying Tug's probably in the same line of thinking with me on this, and that Cam Rising has not inspired a lot of faith in us. And Utah has gone the way of Cam Rising for the past 3 years. So that's at least where I'm at with this one. Plus ASU at home, I'm going to give them a little bit of an edge at Sun Devil Stadium. So we'll see what happens.
I don't even know if Cam Rising's going to be playing.
Exactly.
I'm just going to assume not. And we're going to see Isaac Wilson again, which is, once again, scary. I don't love that. Washington's heading, halfway across the country to Iowa. Iowa having a rebound after a 28-point loss to the Buckeyes in the shoe. And Washington coming off an emotional win against the Wolverines, double-digit revenge game for them off that championship loss last season. I'm going with the Hawkeyes in part because of that emotion. This is something that Nick Saban pointed out after the Alabama-Georgia game. He's like, if it is much easier to come off of a loss in a game like that because the loss forces you to do some examination and make some changes. And if you win a game like that, you're going to think you're invincible, and it's going to bite you.
This Iowa team is definitely one to bite a Washington team that thinks they're invincible. But I don't think Washington's going to think they're invincible.
Probably not. After losing to Rutgers, it's hard to think they're invincible.
Yeah, I think that Rutgers loss is going to be weighing heavy on their minds, and I'm going to believe that Washington can get it done at Kinnick Stadium.
Yeah, I've up in the air. Same as this next one for me. 2 Big Ten battles that could honestly go either way. Wisconsin traveling to Rutgers feels like it's probably about as far as Washington to Iowa. I don't know if that's true or not, but it feels like it in my soul.
It's probably about right.
Yeah, it's at Rutgers. Rutgers has been playing very well. Wisconsin has not necessarily been playing all that well, though they started to put things together last week. If this were in Camp Randall, I'd be taking Wisconsin by 2 scores.
That's fair.
But Rutgers gets a home game here. I think they're going to pull some nonsense off and get a single-digit win.
Yeah, I could see it happening. This loss against Nebraska, I think, really showed us what Rutgers is, and that is a very tenacious team that you can never really count out. So I'm not going to say that this is going to be an easy win for Wisconsin, but Wisconsin team is certainly trying to find their identity, and I know Luke Fickell's really coaching for his job here at this point. He's got to get this win, and I think they're going to get it done against the Scarlet Knights.
And then a MAC matchup between our favorite at this point in the league, Toledo, heading out to the team that knocked off Northern Illinois, the Buffalo Bulls.
The first team to knock off Northern Illinois. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, Toledo, I think, probably is our favorite MAC team right now. But Buffalo's pretty good too. I get why Tug went with them. It's just very hard for me to pick against Toledo with how they've handled themselves throughout this season. I'm not saying they're going to win the MAC. I think the MAC is probably the hardest conference to say who the clear-cut winner is going to be. But they're on a very good course for it. Much better than I think NIU ever was, regardless of how much ESPN sucked them off.
Very true. Good wording. Love that. One game at noon that we didn't make picks for, Georgia Tech at North Carolina. It feels like a big game, but come on. We were definitely all picking Georgia Tech in that one because North Carolina's been just face fucking themselves somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, we're not making picks for that. Let's jump down to the FCS at noon here. Starting off with Davidson at Dayton. Another one of those Pioneer matchups feels like a really big deal right now. Davidson is coming in 4-1, 2-0 in the Pioneer. Dayton is 3-1. Got themselves a little bit of time off in there early in the season. Not great teams compared to some of the scholarship schools at the FCS level, but this is a non-scholarship league. We got a couple of equals coming against each other here. And yeah, this is in Dayton.
On Facebook.
Going to be live streamed on Facebook. Let's go. Let's go Flyers.
Yeah, let's go Flyers indeed. On Facebook, the wildest part, you left until the very end. Like, come on. Dartmouth at Yale. I'm very curious as to why Tug's taking Dartmouth. Too bad he's not here to talk about it. Yale feels like the much better team in this one.
Yeah, usually, but Dartmouth's 3-0 right now, and their mascot's a big keg of beer. And Yale's 2-1. They are at home, but they already have a loss this season, which is very unusual for the Bulldogs. Starting off 0-2 in the Ivy would be insane. What are we talking about? This is Yale. They already lost to Cornell, though, which feels insane. I think Yale's going to be on a tear and be fighting like hell. I know Dartmouth will be too, but Dartmouth's wins have been very close so far. Yale's the better team. It's at Yale. Gotta rock the Bulldogs, right?
I think you got to rock with the Bulldogs, but I also motion to have Keggy be the official image we use for all future Dartmouth picks.
Understandable. The second battle for the supremacy of Rhode Island. Brown at Rhode Island at 1:00 here. Why
Surely
are you picking Brown?
Because surely they don't fucking lose it twice, right? Because this has been a bizarro year for Brown, so like they're going to win one of these games that they shouldn't. I don't know. I don't know how there's 4 colleges in Rhode Island. I've said it before. I'll say it again. It doesn't make sense. I went through the entire fucking state, and I was there for a week. And I went through it in one day. One day.
You can drive through the state in 40 minutes with traffic. It's nuts.
Yeah, that's sitting in traffic in Providence for 30 minutes.
But Brown is 2-1 right now. Unreal. Rhode Island's 4-1. Their only loss is at Minnesota, so 4-0 at the FCS level. They are technically in the race to be the best team in the CAA. Doesn't sound right the way they've played so far this year. We'll see how they can do against the Bears.
Lucky not good catches up to you eventually, and I think that's what Rhode Island's been. We'll see.
Very, very possible. And Missouri State at Illinois State here. Missouri State is in their last year in the FCS. We talked about that a couple of times, heading up to Conference USA next season. Illinois State coming off of a dominating performance over SIU. We are all picking the Bears, though. I'm pretty surprised at that.
Yeah. Fuck Illinois State. Missouri State is an interesting one because they've been quietly a good team. They get overshadowed by the rest of their conference a lot, it feels like. And especially with them making this transition, they haven't really been pushing for anything. Now they're really starting to get into, we're getting out of the FCS, getting into the FBS. Let's leave a mark here while we can. Unfortunate that this team won't be allowed to compete in some capacity in some sort of postseason. I would love to see a Missouri State versus the Celebration Bowl champion. Maybe we could start doing that with the HBCUs. Like, hey, you're not going to get to play a playoff game. Well, you want to play the team that's going up to the FBS and give them one less ass kicking before they're out of here. Like, sell it like that. I don't know, something. It seems wrong that Missouri State's season's going to end when the regular season's over.
I feel very dumb picking Furman against Chattanooga right now, but I'm still picking the Paladins. I don't. This is my least confident pick of the week.
I feel like Chat's been lucky, not good as well, though. I think that's been their season.
Yeah, probably. Maybe. I don't know. But Furman's been neither lucky nor good.
That's fair. But the Paladins are way cooler than whatever the fuck Chattanooga is.
The Mocs.
Because they're not the Choo-Choos.
Right. If they were the Chattanooga Choo-Choos, we'd be picking them
I'd be going with Chattanooga every week, yeah.
Butler at Drake, the game I've been hyping up for a couple of weeks. Hopefully this is not a stinker. That would really suck for all the work I've done to hype this one up. 5-0 Butler at 3-1 Drake. Of course, Drake, if you'll remember last season, made it to the playoffs because they were the Pioneer champions. Got molly-whopped by the Bison, 66-3 in the first round of the playoffs. That's the kind of level of football we're dealing with here. But who cares? Because this is a Pioneer League game. They're both non-scholarship schools, and it should be really fun to watch. I'm pulling for the Bulldogs. Which Bulldogs? The Butler Bulldogs, because it's also the Drake Bulldogs.
I really wish Tug was here to explain taking Drake here. Although, if this is going to be as good a game as you say it is, makes sense that we all aren't going the same direction. I just think Butler's had the better offense going at this point in the season. So that's why I'm going with Butler here.
It better be a good game. I'm going to be looking real dumb if it's not.
And we all might be looking real dumb on this slide as well. Alcorn State at Grambling to kick us off here. We're all going with Grambling. And oh, by the way, we're all going with the same team on our next two games as well.
Yeah. Yeah, all of these scare me quite a bit, actually. I don't know what to expect out of either Grambling or Alcorn State right now. So I guess I'm going with the home team here. Grambling's looked more impressive at times, but Alcorn State's been a little bit more consistent, I would say. So whichever of the two we get out of Grambling is going to determine this one. Also, the original G's suck at Georgia.
And Green Bay. Fuck them. Hey, none of us are taking Southeastern Louisiana against Houston Christian. And I don't know if it's because we just have this memory that Southeast Louisiana hasn't really been who they were when Cole Kelly was there or what. It does seem odd that nobody wanted to go with the Lions in this one.
To me, this one came down to how Houston Christian was able to do against McNeese. Made that not a competitive game, which is impressive to me. At the same time, Southeastern Louisiana has been competitive pretty much every time, not counting the game against South Dakota State. Everybody knows South Dakota State's better than this whole league. But, yeah, they've been very competitive, been right there against Tarleton State, beat Eastern Washington.
Yep.
Not that Eastern Washington's particularly phenomenal this season, but they're still a tough out over there in the Big Sky. I feel like there's something here with the Lions. But, yeah, Houston Christians look more dominant more recently, for sure.
This next one that I'm most interested for, the Red River rivalry, we're all going with Texas. This game, of course, taking place at the Cotton Bowl at the Texas State Fair. I get it. Okay, there is a large portion of me that gets it that Texas is far and away the better team. On the other hand, it's the Red River rivalry. Crazier things have happened. This has turned seasons around for both of these schools in the past. It
Right.
has made Heisman Trophy winners in the past. It has set the table for playoff pushes in the past. With the 12-team playoff, I don't know that a loss for either of these teams knocks them out, even though Oklahoma already does have one. I'm very curious to see how this game actually plays out. I feel pretty confident all of us taking Texas, but I would not at all be surprised for us to get this completely wrong and end up all horns down here either.
I know. It's a rivalry game, right? Anything can happen. But as of right now, Quinn Ewers will be the quarterback again for Texas. Coming off a bye week here, it feels like Texas's game to lose, which
Oh yeah.
is again very scary going into a rivalry game, especially one as big as the Red River. We'll see. Uh, I'm I'm 55% Longhorns in this one over the Sooners.
I just I feel like, these two teams came into the SEC together this year. One of them was ready.
Yeah.
That's what it came down to for me. One of them was ready. And again, I won't be at all surprised if Oklahoma wins this game.
Next up, Penn State, the number 4 team in the country. Penn State and Nittany Lions headed all the way out to Los Angeles
Wild.
to play the USC Trojans, who just got knocked out of the top 25 entirely after losing at Minnesota from number 11. And yet 2 of us are rocking with the Trojans here. My biggest reason for picking USC. So I think this is going to be the 3rd straight week of an insanely close back and forth battle for USC, which is not what Lincoln Riley is comfortable in. However, forcing Penn State to travel all the way across the country helps you a lot here.
Yup.
And they're having to bus everybody like 2 hours off campus to get to a bigger airport because the airport on campus is not big enough for a big enough plane to go to LA. That was a huge story in the press conference today. James Franklin's like, I can't believe our runway's not long enough. This is brutal. We're going to bus our kids out so we can go to LA. Yeah,
That's
rocking with
wild.
USC because of the travel.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Penn State's really ready for this. Like, this is one of the things Chip Kelly brought up. This is the only time these football players have to do it. This is going to be a multiple time a year thing for a lot of other sports. It is insane to me that Penn State is number 4 and 2 of us are going with the Trojans here. That doesn't feel right. But at the same time, USC, they got the big win at LSU. Their losses have not been embarrassments for them either. Like, they certainly are ready. I think also they have the issue of every one of their conference games, save one of them, is a big trip. So it makes sense. I think they're going to just develop a culture that adjusts that a little bit better. I think in the end, they're going to have the advantage on these big, long road trips versus a Penn State who does it once or twice a year.
Very much agree. I think I saw a stat right now so far. In the Big Ten, the home team is 6-1 when you have to travel more than 1,000 miles to your game. The only winner in that is Indiana at UCLA so far this season.
Whew. That should tell you everything you know about UCLA.
Right. Next up here, a big rivalry matchup. Stanford at Notre Dame. Feels like a big one every year, even when it shouldn't be. Sometimes it is a blowout in favor of Notre Dame, but sometimes Stanford comes out of nowhere, pulls an RKO, and just beats the shit out of the Irish. That would be awesome to see. I'm not picking that to happen. We're going with Notre Dame in this one, but it might.
Yeah, and I think Notre Dame should be undefeated, right? Like let's not cut corners here. They should be undefeated. I didn't think they would lose this game at the beginning of the year. I still don't think they're going to lose this game.
Yeah, very fair. Virginia is home against the Cardinals, and two of us are going with the Louisville Cardinals here. I don't trust either of these defenses.
Yep.
And one of the offenses only shows up for one quarter. The other offense at least shows up for 2.5. So I'm picking Louisville based on that, which isn't much. But I had to come up with something.
Yeah. For Virginia, they're just going to build on some momentum at home here. That's really the best I got for them because Louisville just hasn't been impressive in any facet of the game so far this season.
Definitely agree. But I don't know that Virginia really has either. They just find some ways to win occasionally.
That's fair. I don't think you're wrong at that at all.
Again, staying in the ACC for another Pitt game, Cal headed across the country to play the undefeated Pittsburgh Panthers, who, hey, they have a game this weekend, and then they have a bye week, I believe, and then they're home against Syracuse, a game I will be at. Very excited. I want Pitt to win so that they were undefeated. I get to see them in a packed atmosphere at Acrisure. But yeah, Cal's a great team. Again, really picked Pitt for the travel.
Yeah, and that's part of it for me as well. But Pitt's also just a better team. This travel has to be wearing on them in for the Cal Golden Bears at this point. Like this is just getting brutal at this point.
We'll see. We'll see. Maybe they'll run out of gas like they did against Miami too. It's possible. Just don't have the talent to compete for all 4 quarters, feels like right now. But they are right on the edge of doing something great down at Cal. Cincinnati at UCF in what should have been a no doubter. All of us picking UCF just a couple of weeks ago. Now UCF's fallen off hard. Cincinnati has very quietly made some adjustments. Lost by a field goal against Texas Tech at Texas Tech. Brutal. But it feels like Cincinnati is a better team than we thought they were going to be heading into this season. Again, only losses at this point. 1 point against Pitt and 3 points in Lubbock. Maybe they do something crazy here at UCF. We are all rocking with the Knights, though.
Yeah, and I said it last week that UCF has been very exposed this year, but something just hasn't felt right about Cincinnati. That's really the bigger issue for me here.
Right.
I feel uneasy, especially with all of us taking UCF, but I would feel more uneasy about taking Cincinnati.
And this next game, ooh, this is a spicy one.
Old Dominion at Georgia State. Look, Georgia State has had their stumbles. Old Dominion has as well. But Old Dominion has also looked very, very good this year.
They sure have. Man. It's at Georgia State, and we're all picking Georgia State. I don't think that's right.
This didn't go bad for us last time we did it?
Right. This is the same Panthers team that beat Vanderbilt. I understand that. This is also the same Old Dominion team that has been in every game they've been a part of. Even that Virginia Tech, I know it was a 20-point loss, but man, Old Dominion was there for a good stretch of it. They're 1-4. They are potentially my favorite 1-4 team in the country right now. Old Dominion has some fight to them.
That's very true. This is going to be a very interesting game to keep track of as well.
Speaking of some of my favorite teams with not great records, the Bowling Green Falcons are playing at home against the Notre Dame Killers, Northern Illinois.
It's
We're
the
all
only
rocking with
team
the
they,
Falcons.
yeah, because that's the only team Northern Illinois could beat. They fucking suck. They're getting what they fucking deserve, and Bowling Green's gonna roll them.
Let's go, BGSU. Let's go. Sanford at ETSU. Couple of us picking the Bucks to get back on track here. Sanford just hasn't been the same this season, it feels like. But getting into conference play, I understand Tug taking them. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and ETSU, this is definitely a get right game after losing to Chattanooga last week during Chattanooga Hate Week. If there's a team to get right against and a time to do it, now is the time, and this is the team against Samford for them.
What a brutal way to start your season if you're Princeton. Starting 1-2 and then having to go down to Mercer and
Oh,
facing
God.
that brutal defense.
Yeah.
Tiger against Bear. We're
Oh,
all
my.
picking the Bears.
You know, I think it's about 2 more weeks, and I might have said this every week until I stop believing in Mercer. And maybe I'll just keep saying 2 more weeks until I stop believing in Mercer. But right now, I'm definitely still firmly a believer in Mercer.
They're 5-0. We're all picking them to start the season 6-0. Would be quite the start for the Mercer Bears.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Talking about unbelievable starts, Arizona at BYU. BYU has a great shot to become the next team to be bowl eligible here already this season with a 6-0 record. Would be very impressive.
I think we're looking at the conference champs, looking at BYU right now. I think we're looking at the Big 12 conference champs.
That's crazy, but maybe not wrong. Maybe not wrong. It feels wild to me. I don't want to agree with that because it feels like there's got to be somebody else in this conference that can
I don't
stop
know if
them.
they're. Here's the difference, though, right? BYU's been winning on the strength of their defense, which is not
Right.
what the Big 12 is known for. You want to talk
Right.
about a culture shift? You know, forget that they don't drink or party or do any of the fun things that college is about. They're going out here and playing a style of football that the conference has never seen, and it just goes to show how important defense is. Defense wins championships for a reason.
I mean, now that you make that point that they're not partying and not doing that kind of stuff, they're definitely losing at Arizona State, the biggest party school in the conference.
In the country.
Yeah. Debatable because right up there alongside of them is Ohio University, who's playing
Yeah.
Central Michigan
Oh, yeah.
this week in the MAC.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you changed your pick.
I did.
We, you know, pre-show we got this together. Obviously, we got to see everybody's picks, and we were all. This was another very scary slide for us where we all agreed on all 3 games. You changed to Central Michigan. I'm curious what swayed you away from going with the Bobcats here.
Honestly, this game, more than any that we've all picked the same team for, is such a 50-50 to me. It felt so wrong, all of us picking the same team. Somebody had to change it, and I wasn't going to make somebody else change it. So I'll bite the bullet, go with the Chippewas here.
And you're gonna be the one that gets it right. You're gonna be the only correct answer on this slide. Watch.
Probably. That's probably how this is going to go. I have no good reason to pick either of these teams right now. Like, looking at this matchup, there's nothing that stands out as this is why Team X will win. It's like, yeah, Ohio does this well, but Central Michigan can stop that pretty well so far this season.
I've got a friend that went to Ohio, and that's
Okay.
the only reason I went with Ohio, because you're right. This game is that close. You got to just start looking for weird things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no other explanation at all. It's just like somebody had to change it. I'm going with the Chippewas. Let's go. Let's go,
Fair
Chips.
enough. Send it.
UT Martin at Western Illinois. Can the Leathernecks make it 3 in a row? We are all picking against them. Yeah. Take that, Western Illinois.
And I hate taking UT Martin. I hate going with the Skyhawks, but Western Illinois is just they're very, very bad.
Yeah. Ranked matchup here in the FCS, one of only 2 this entire weekend. Northern Arizona is heading up to Montana. And yeah, Montana is going to have some demons to exercise in this one. Feel it
Yeah, and
coming.
we just talked about how NAU could become a team that causes issues. Maybe they cause some issues in this one. Maybe it's not going to be a complete blowout, but I would not want to be lining up across the Grizzlies this week.
Very much agree. Stephen F. Austin at Lamar feels like a massive game for the Southland Conference. Lamar had some success early in the season that hasn't exactly translated to the second half of their season so far. But they haven't played a conference game yet. This is the first one for them. And Stephen F. Austin feels like a good challenge coming to them here in Beaumont. I'm rocking with Lamar. I have more confidence in them for no good reason.
That's fair.
That's my answer.
And I think the no good reason is kind of where I'm at. I've not seen anything that impressive from Lamar. I don't know if I've seen anything impressive from Stephen F. Austin either. But Lamar doesn't inspire confidence. A team that does inspire confidence is Eastern Kentucky, and they're going up against Southern Utah this week.
Hey, Southern Utah should have made it double overtime at least against Tarleton State. They really should have. Didn't happen. And now Eastern Kentucky comes their way. We'll see how this goes. But I'm kind of in your camp right now. I'm putting some faith in Eastern Kentucky for once. Let's do it.
No reason not to.
They broke my heart last year and 2 years ago.
I remember last year.
This season feels like they got something cooking. Let's go,
Absolutely.
Colonels.
Absolutely. Hey, there's that big block T we were talking about earlier. But before we get to that game, let's talk about San Jose State and Colorado State. This game's going to be 4:30 on True TV or Max. How can anybody, and we all went with San Jose State, but how can anybody pick Colorado State right now?
I don't know. We're only picking this game because we're tracking Ken Niumatalolo's first season with the Spartans. Yeah, we were all picking San Jose State all the way. I knew it was coming. But yeah. That's where we're at.
Next up, the third Saturday in October. You know what that means, even though it's the second Saturday in October.
Yeah.
It's Florida and Tennessee. Thank you, SEC, for fucking up a tradition. Feels good. Tennessee.
Gotta love it.
Yeah, this game's at Neyland Stadium. Volunteers are hosting, and yet I'm going with Florida. Why is that?
Because you're a Tennessee hater.
I'm a Tennessee hater. However, a loss for Tennessee, a big win for Florida, be a high emotional game, another rivalry going in here. And I think Florida's tired of being discounted the way that they have been.
Sure.
This is the toughest schedule we've ever seen. Okay, well, Florida might come out and win some of these. The narrative all year is it's the toughest schedule ever. It's the toughest schedule ever. And then just expecting Florida to lose every single one of these games. It feels like this might be a winnable situation. Tennessee might come in with too much emotion. You just had a bad loss against Arkansas, another in-conference rival, and now you're coming into a rivalry game at home. It feels like there might be too much going into this for them. They've got a very good team, very high-powered offense. I would not be surprised at all to see Florida get blown out, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see Tennessee come out and stumble, and I would love to see Brett Heupel upset because that makes me happy.
Yeah. I can't pick against Tennessee at home right now. I know they just lost to Arkansas. I know it was ugly. I know Amaleava is a redshirt freshman who's playing his first season and is definitely making some freshman type mistakes. But this is at Neyland.
Mm-hmm.
I can't pick against Tennessee in this right now. I wanted to, honestly. I came into this thinking this feels like a game Florida should have a shot in. I couldn't bring myself to do it. This is the Volunteers for me.
Also, no clue where the fuck I got Brett Heupel from. I'm of course talking about Josh Heupel. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I was ignoring that. It's fine. Hey, Liberty just won over FIU, by the way, 31-24 in overtime.
Overtime.
Free football. Let's go. Washington State at Fresno State. The future Pac-12 matchup here. Current Mountain West / non-conference-ish game.
The two
this season. We're all rocking with the Cougars here. Fresno State has felt like they've been in some dog fights, though. Pun slightly intended. They are the Bulldogs. But, yeah, we're all rocking with the Cougars. They had something cooking and should get it right back.
And Fresno State hadn't been awful. They've just not been great. It's interesting to see Washington State finally have somewhat of a resurgence. Maybe it's because they're not playing a real tough Pac-12 schedule like they had been. I would be curious to see
that. You say that, but they played Texas Tech. They played Washington already this season.
They beat
really
Washington.
Their schedule gets softer from here.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So, I don't know. I'm interested. Speaking of Fresno State, if you like college football 25 and you like watching people play college football 25, I just played Fresno State as the New Mexico Lobos. And you can check that out on my YouTube. I'll drop the link in the comments. But while I'm doing that, let's move on to the rest of our games that we're picking here, which includes New Mexico. And we'll get there in a minute. Don't worry.
Before we get there, Arkansas State at Texas State. Arkansas State shocked us immensely. I was very confident in the South Alabama pick, but it was projected to be a close game. Felt like a big deal for the Sun Belt. Wanted to throw it in there. Arkansas State won. And now they're heading to a Texas State team that I still really like, but they haven't exactly been winning every game. So we'll see what happens here. This is at Texas State, though. We're all picking the Bobcats.
Yeah, it only makes sense. They're the champions of life. They're not the champions of football. What's very curious to me is this next matchup, North Texas versus Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic's not been a great team this year by any stretch of the imagination. You know who else hasn't been a great team this year? North Texas. So I really wish I knew why Tug decided to go with North Texas.
I think he's looking at the scores of the last two games and concluding that North Texas is a better team than they've showed at points. You have to consider, though, those two games, the last two games they played were against Wyoming and Tulsa. So I don't have too much confidence in this Mean Green team. They're at Florida Atlantic. I know this is an upset pick. I'm rocking with the Owls here.
As am I, especially at home. North Texas has not been a team in the past few years that's traveled well. Again, this is crazy because I feel like I've gone back and forth with this North Texas team so many times. It feels like they were doing everything right, and then it's just not coming together. And this seems like another year that's going to be wasted for them.
It really does. It feels like a kind of a wasted season for Florida Atlantic already, too, though.
That's fair.
Who knows? Wild season all around right now in the American. Must be said.
Absolutely.
Southern at Texas Southern this weekend in the SWAC. The Southern Jaguars haven't exactly been playing up to their standard. as of late. Overtime win against Prairie View. Not very inspiring. Getting stomped by Nichols again. Not very inspiring. Texas Southern, on the other hand, has been getting smoked recently. This feels very important for getting right one of these teams. Honestly, preseason, both these teams felt like they had a shot to win the West. Neither team's coming out here and proven anything to this point in the season. I wanted to watch this game as a get right for somebody. Then it turns out we're all taking the Tigers here.
Yeah, I don't know how you come back from a loss against Nichols like Southern took. There's getting beat bad and having something to fire you up and build off of, but when you have a demoralizing loss like that one, that's something completely different.
Yeah. This game will be live streamed on the SWAC Digital Network YouTube channel, by the way. Very exciting.
Hell yeah. And now
7:30 slate, some of the real meat of the day. Oh
the
boy.
first Ohio State game we are taking this year.
Number 2 at number 3 in what is very possibly a preview of a Big Ten championship rematch in the future. Who knows? Very possibly a preview of a playoff game later this season. Who knows?
Potentially the national championship.
Both of these teams are extremely talented. I would pick Ohio State's receiving core over Oregon's if I had to take one of the two, but it's close. And if I had to just pick a quarterback off the street, am I taking Will Howard or Dylan Gabriel? Both of them have flaws. Both of them have some really obvious strengths. Both of them have great experience. I don't know what the right answer to that is right now. The craziest part to me, based off of the past 2 seasons for both of these teams, is that at this point in the season, Ohio State has the better offensive line. That is not something I would have been able to say last season or the season before or the season before that. I'm very impressed with the work that Chip Kelly, Paul Devereaux, and honestly, yes, Justin Fry has been able to do to turn this offensive line around. Justin Fry was getting a whole lot of hate for how bad the offensive line looked past 2 seasons. But it has to be said, the cupboard was a little bit bare. And he's done some rebuilding here and some real coaching work. Also, the way that we're calling running plays has definitely changed with Chip Kelly. And pulling guards and pulling tackles has never looked so good at Ohio State. Legitimately, we have not done it this well in a very, very long time. What that has led to is we have 2 of the best running backs in the country. Quinshon Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson both can beat you by themselves. The craziest part about this offense is they don't have to beat you by themselves. So there's going to be some real chess matches here. As talented as I'm hyping up this offense to be, Oregon's defense might be just as good. And vice versa. I think I would give the edge to Ohio State's defense over Oregon's offense. But man, they're going to make some plays.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have seen Dylan Gabriel play football for a while.
Too long.
Also that.
Since you were in diapers.
Yeah. And he has made me sad so many times because he has beaten teams that I have wanted to win. So for once, I'm taking control of the situation. I would take Gale and Gabriel over Will Howard 9 times out of 10, I think. And so for that reason, if this is the one time that Will Howard shows that he is the better quarterback, I'll be fine with losing this one. I'll be fine with it, with Oregon, coming up with the short stick on this one. But I also think that this is going to be a very interesting matchup in that there is some history between these two teams. They've played some non-conference games in the past, and Oregon has had the upper hand. Now this is going to become.
I mean, one time.
That's the
Literally
one I
one time.
remember. It's the one I remember.
Ohio State's 9-1 all time against Oregon.
In the most recent one, the one.
Yeah.
There you go. Now that it's going to be a annual or nearly annual thing, it's going to be a conference matchup. It's certainly going to be occurring more frequently, at the very least, right?
Right.
This is the beginning of that, and it's going to be interesting to see if Oregon can get off to the start that they want here, especially doing it at Alton Stadium. If this game's at the shoe, there's no chance I take Oregon. Having the home field advantage, I think, is going to play an impact as the game goes on.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it to Oregon here.
And what we were just talking about with Penn State USC, that travel might be a factor. Ryan Day has said it shouldn't be. I think he said it's a 4.5-hour plane ride, and we're actually going to stay on Eastern time. Essentially, what he's saying. That I don't know if that's going to work too well.
Well,
maybe that's fine. I don't know. Man, the one thing that really scares me right now that Oregon does well, Ohio State has not shown a propensity to be able to handle, is that really quick pass game where you complete you get some 5-yard or less completions very quickly, get the ball out before the defensive line has any chance to make an impact, and see what you can get yards after the catch. The reason we have been ineffective in stopping that is because Jim Knowles has taken the stance of we want to prevent the big play, so we're going to start the game by playing off coverage. We'll get closer as it looks like the game allows us to get closer with our corners to the line of scrimmage, I'm saying. I don't think that's going to work against Oregon. They're going to chew us the fuck up if we let that happen in the first half against this Oregon team, because that's the only pass that Dylan Gabriel's capable of making is that 5-yard or less, really quick, instant, get the ball in his hands and release it immediately. That's what he's built his career off of. So if we let them start doing that, they're going to control the first half of this game, which is already a scary thought to me. But at the same time, I do believe Ohio State is talented enough to come back from that, even if they do let Oregon start hot. So should be a fascinating game. Really very possible this is a knockout, drag out, slugfest. Another classic Big Ten 27-24 type of game. But I don't know. Obviously, I'm rooting for Ohio State. Big Ohio State fan. We'll see what happens. We'll see.
Ole Miss at LSU. Only one taking Ole Miss is Tug. I just think they're a bunch of frauds, and going to Death Valley, it's not going to go well for them.
That's where I'm at, except for the fraud part. I think Ole Miss is good, but I feel like LSU is getting he's getting underappreciated. And when that happens, that's when Chip Kelly's a good coach. When he is undervalued, when his team is looked down upon, that's when they start winning games. Whenever they're the favorite, they're going to lose again. But right now, Ole Miss is a 4-point favorite in Death Valley. Yeah, LSU's winning this game.
And then America's sweetheart for at least, the time being. Vanderbilt heading out to Kentucky, coming off the biggest win in program history. Look, do I think Kentucky's a better team? Yeah, I think Kentucky's a better team. These kids are too smart, or otherwise I wouldn't be at Vanderbilt, but they're too smart to let their emotions get in the way and cloud their judgment going into this game. I believe in Diego Pavia. I'm going with Vanderbilt.
I understand it. I think Kentucky's going to be really jacked about playing this game just as much as Vanderbilt will be.
Mm-hmm.
And once the emotions wear off, or if the emotions neutralize each other, which they might here, then it comes down to pure talent. And I think Kentucky's a better team right now. I'm not very confident in that, but I'm picking the Wildcats, and so's Tug.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
Almost as much of a shame as us all picking West Virginia hosting Iowa State this week.
Brutal. Number 11, Iowa State getting no love on this podcast. All taking the Mountaineers in Morgantown. Yeah. Wild to me. But
and especially since we're just talking about how we don't know that we trust West Virginia. My issue is Iowa State's beat one good team.
Right.
And they're number 11.
Right. Penn State, on the other hand, is Penn State. West Virginia has lost to two good teams, one of them being Penn State, the other one being Pitt. So,
yeah,
two good losses versus one good win. Who do you actually like better in that situation? I don't know. We're all picking the Mountaineers, though, so I guess that's the answer. Oh, man. Syracuse at NC State this weekend as well. Grayson McCall has been – he got hurt, went to the hospital, got out of the hospital. He's okay, but I doubt he's playing in this one, which maybe is not the worst thing for NC State, honestly, because Grayson McCall has not played well this season. So we'll see what happens there. Actually, CJ Bailey is their leading passer this season anyway. But the Kyle McCord CJ Bailey battle should be fascinating to watch. It is at NC State, so not a whole lot of confidence in the Orange, but I am still taking them here.
Yeah, if there's any chance for NC State to get their shit figured out, it's going to be this week. At home, conference matchup against a solid opponent, right? You want to say you don't have any faith in Syracuse coming into this week, but let's be real. They're still a pretty good team. They're just much better at home, and that's just been Syracuse's MO for, several years going in here. So,
right.
I'm interested to see how this one goes. Obviously, I'm going to go with the Wolfpack because it kind of makes sense that maybe we'll get it done. But again, this one, I don't feel – this is probably the one I feel least confident about this week.
One I feel very confident about, Air Force at New Mexico. I am taking the shit out of the Lobos.
Fuck yeah, I am. I'm glad Tug grew some balls and decided to take his school. Realistically, if Air Force is going to win any more games, this is probably one of the ones that they win. I could see him pulling it out against Army because it's Army, and that's a somewhat of a rivalry game. But
right,
the Air Force Academy is pretty bad this year.
Writing was on the wall when they only scored 21 points against Merrimack in Parents Weekend.
Yeah,
but man, it's just been brutal ever since. The offense cannot get going, and the defense has allowed at least 31 points in 3 straight games. New Mexico, on the other hand, likes to score. So we might see the Lobos put some numbers up here against the Falcons, unfortunately, for Air Force.
Absolutely. Be great for us, though.
Right?
Let's go, Lobos.
Marshall at Georgia Southern. This one is a bit of a rivalry down there in the Sun Belt. And Marshall looked pretty dang good last week. I know it was against App State, and App State's not what they have been, but Marshall looked pretty dang good. And so did Georgia Southern against Georgia State. kind of out of nowhere, very unexpected for all three of us picking Georgia State in that game. Georgia Southern mollywopped them. So, fascinating matchup here. And for some reason, another game at Georgia Southern, we're all taking the road team. Oof.
The Herd have been impressive. What can I say?
Yep.
Moving along,
I agree.
Minnesota UCLA. This one on the Big Ten Network at 9 p.m. because it's on the West Coast here. We just gushed about Minnesota, and yet Tug's the only one taking them. And I'm pretty sure we said UCLA sucked at one point. So
we did, and I still believe that. However, Minnesota's coming off a very emotional win and traveling all the way across the country. Kind of a setup here for something nasty to happen.
Well, and I think the bigger thing for me is I've seen this PJ Fleck story too many times. Big win, big letdown, big win, big letdown. And again, like you said, the travel, that's a huge thing for me as well. I don't think UCLA is that bad that they can't take advantage of these things here.
We'll see. I am rooting for Minnesota in this one, but I'm picking the Bruins, as the case may be.
Absolutely. Eastern Washington at Sac State.
Important Big Sky battle here because Sac State felt like they were on the path doing some great things, and they kind of let their ego get the best of them, I think. This is a great check to see if their season's going to fall apart or if they can get things right, because Eastern Washington is no slouch, but this is a game Sacramento State should win. And we're all picking the Hornets.
Absolutely. And as we said earlier in the show, Eastern Washington is not the team that they've been in the past. It only makes sense. And oh, by the way, Sacramento State's more than willing, ready, and able to make that jump to get into the Pac-12 of all conferences.
The Sac-12 committee on a roll.
Love it.
Let's go Sac-12. Kansas State at Colorado. Another Big 12 matchup that feels like some massive, massive implications for the rest of the season. I hate that I'm picking Colorado, but I am.
I don't know who I'm more surprised took Colorado, you or Tug. I really don't know. And
I mean, he's been a little bit of a Buff believer.
I have too. But two things happened.
Yeah.
Kansas State has done amazing things in some games that I did not think they had a chance. See Oklahoma State. And some dude shoved a beefy 5-layer burrito up his ass after losing to BYU and saying that he would do so. Kansas State's untouchable at this point, I think. FSU, on the other hand, still waiting on a dude to eat some dog shit out of a red Solo Cup. So if that happens, FSU might turn their season around. I don't think Kansas State loses again. They got a man that's willing to do all these things for his team, and he follows through with it. I'm just saying.
Here's my thing, and the reason I'm picking Colorado, not because I believe in Colorado, because I've made it very clear that I don't, and I never will. Fuck Colorado. Kansas State only shows up at home.
That's true.
Watch them at Tulane and tell me they should have won that game. They won by 7, but they should not have won that game.
They should not have won that game.
Watch them at BYU and tell me they belong in the FBS. They did not that night. They belonged in Division III.
Yeah.
They shat the fucking bed on the road. They blew out Oklahoma State. They blew out Arizona. Of course, they're going to blow out UT Martin. All at home. They play great at home. This game is not at home for Kansas State. This is at Colorado. I'm taking the Buffs.
Yeah, Avery Johnson looked like he didn't know what a fucking football was at BYU. Like, it was like, what's this? First time I've seen this thing. I'm supposed to throw it?
It's not round, but it's called a ball. What is up with that?
What is this?
Wait, you can throw it in a spiral?
This is dark magic. What are we talking about?
No, I don't believe you. I'm going to throw it like this. It just shoves it through the air. Oh, wow. Interception. What are those? I have
Oh,
4
no.
of them?
The other team has the ball?
I don't think that's going to happen. It might. That would be hilarious. But I do not trust Kansas State on the road. And I think that's, if Colorado wins, I'm going to take that to the bank. Kansas State's going to win the rest of their home games and lose the rest of their road games.
That's fair. That's very fair. Next up, Idaho at Montana State. You and Tug both going with the Bobcats here.
Oh, yes. And I'm surprised that you are not, because the Bobcats feel like the other one, other than the Dakota States, both, that has a real shot at the FCS title this year. And I know Idaho has played their way into that conversation, but after that loss to UC Davis, I have lost some confidence.
Totally
And
fair.
this is a home game for the best team in the Big Sky for the past several years.
Montana was definitely the better team last year, but that's neither here nor there. I think Idaho is going out into their first clash of the Titans in the Big Sky, and they're going to want to prove that UC Davis game was nothing other than a fluke. This is the time to do it. This is the team to do it against. Being on the road, a very tall task for them, especially considering they play in that dome. But if there's a time for them to pull out all the stops and show who they really are, it's going to be this week. I have faith in the Vandals.
Montana State beat Montana 55-21 last year.
That doesn't sound right at all. I don't believe you.
It is factual. Look it up. Feel free. It's okay.
I mean, I am.
All right. You do that. Bozeman's going to be rocking. The Vandals can't keep up. Let's go sloppy top cats. All right, Boise State at Hawaii, the last game that we were picking, the last game of the night.
Where are you looking at this? Montana won 37-7. They beat the dog shit out of them.
There's definitely a game that happened between Montana State and Montana.
In 2023.
Did I accidentally go back to 2022?
You did. You're living in the past.
I am living in the past. That's brutal. You win this round, good sir.
Thank you.
Damn. All right. That's fine. Anyway.
Everybody gets
still taking Montana State. Then the last game that we were picking here, which is the latest starting game of the weekend, and the last game we're picking, Boise State at Hawaii. I, for some reason, really like what Hawaii's been doing. I think it's because I do really like Timmy Chang, and I want Hawaii to succeed.
Let's ask the more important question.
Okay.
How many touchdowns does Ashton Jeanty get, and will he win the Heisman?
Let's go with 4.
That's where I was thinking too. Put the over-under at 3.5, everybody.
And no, because some bullshit.
It's him or Travis Hunter, right? Like, it has to be one of those two.
That's what people are saying. Watch Cam Ward win by 1 point against Clemson, and everybody's going to lose their minds. I mean, tell me that's not very possible.
He is a quarterback, and it is a quarterback award, or so it's become over the past couple of years.
They don't even play Clemson in the regular season, but who knows?
Unfortunate. Wow. What a great podcast.
He's going to throw for 7 touchdowns against Florida State, and everybody's going to act like he's the best thing ever.
And forget how much they've dunked on Florida State all year. Yeah.
And forget that Ashton GT ran for 7 touchdowns against Florida State.
Yeah. Hey,
Or
before
could
we get
have.
out of here, I got some links to read off. If you would like to support our show, head on over to patreon.com/BDT football, or you could catch the show live on twitch.tv/Big Dudes in the Trenches. Pay for subs there, and that'll go to help us out. You can also keep up with us on Twitter, twitter.com/BDT football or at BDT football. I guess they call it X now. You also check us out on Facebook. Same thing, /BDT football there. On Instagram, it is BDT_football. Can't forget the underscore there. We have a website, bdtfootball.com. You can send us questions at mailbox@bdtfootball.com. We had a commenter come in and watch us live here on YouTube. Thank you, Jesse Links. We appreciate it. And if you would like your comments read aloud, you can go on over to the Twitch that we talked about, or head on over to youtube.com/@BigDudesInTheTrenches. And of course, as we've talked about a few times here, check us out on Discord. Anytime you want to talk football, we're probably there to talk about it. And if not, we'll get to it by the end of the day for sure. We love talking football, whether it's video games or real life. Head on over https://discord.gg/U, lowercase DJ, capital C, capital B, lowercase K, 8, lowercase B. Suck it, Tug.
And if you heard all that and typed it in and joined the Discord via Bug reading you the link, you get special Discord privileges. I don't know what that means yet exactly because nobody's done it yet, but it's going to be incredible when somebody does it. Can't wait.
It'll make me extremely happy. If you didn't catch me reading out those links, they've been scrolling across the bottom if you're watching the video, or you can just check the description wherever you're listening or watching this video. Hey, Doug, where do mummies like to swim?
I don't know.
The Dead Sea.
Okay. I have one
Nothing?
for you. One for you.
Okay.
Man got into a fight with his wife on Halloween. He said, when you die, I'm getting your headstone to say, here lies my wife, who's cold as ever. And she says, well, when you die, I'm going to put on your headstone, here lies my husband, stiff at last.
Nice. That was better.
And with that, thank you so much for tuning in, folks. We have been the Big Dudes in the Trenches. And see you guys next time.
Yep. Peace out, Girl Scout.